Welcome back to another Musume review. Today, we're going to look at Oguri Cap's Christmas edition. She is a 3-star. She can run turf or dirt. Her strategy is pace or late. Her distance is mile, medium, or long. And her release date was this month, January 2026. And her banner actually starts today or started yesterday. Depends on when I publish this video. Now, you'll see I put a little asterisk against dirt, and that is because her dirt aptitude is currently B. So if you want her to run dirt, you will have to probably inherit to make that an A. And same thing with distance. Her long also has an asterisk just because you'll have to inherit to make that an A. It starts off as a B aptitude. Her stat bonuses are 15% in speed and 15% in stamina. Should you pull Oguri Cap Christmas? Yes. No, but seriously, yeah, this is definitely one of the horses you're going to want to pull for. It'll be meta relevant for a while, and that's because of a couple of things. First of all, her unique is really good for a while. Eventually, there are like better horses or horses with like better uniques that come out, but for a while, she will be pretty meta relevant. In addition, her awakening skills, level 3 and 4, are really good, or pretty good at least. I will talk about that soon. So overall, she has a very good unique, she has good skills, and actually her stat bonuses aren't too bad. I like having a 15% in speed and stamina just because usually if you're running like a medium long, then you're gonna want more stamina. So having that increase in stamina makes it a lot easier. And then of course, we always want a lot of speed, so having an increase to speed really helps out. So let's talk about the bread and butter of why Oguri Cap Christmas is literally the best for a while. So you have to look at her skill, right? It says control breathing and kick forward hard towards victory in the second half of the race after recovering endurance with skills at least 3 times. So what does that mean? Well, basically in the second half of the race, she will do 3 things. She will increase her target speed, she will increase her acceleration, and she will increase her stamina recovery. If you have a blue skill or an endurance skill activate at least 3 times. So you need 3 separate blue skills activating, and this is good for a couple of reasons. So first of all, you are getting 3 things within 1 skill. You're getting target increased speed by 0.25, you're increasing your acceleration by 0.3, and your stamina recovery is increasing by 0.035. You are literally getting 3 effects for 1 skill. And if you're just running Oguri Cap Christmas, then you don't even need to pay for the skill. When it is inherited, the effects do decrease. The target speed goes to 0.05, the increased acceleration goes to 0.1, and the stamina recovery goes to 0.005. But it's still kind of good because you can sort of control when these things occur using the 3 blue skill or endurance skill activation effect. And I'll talk about what I mean by that. So the second thing is we can sort of control when this skill procs with some RNG effects, of course, right? So the thing you can do is if you can find 3 blue skills where 2 of them will activate, randomly before the final 3rd blue skill, and then the 3rd blue skill activates like right before the final spurt, then you can sort of control when the skill procs. And we want the skill to proc right before the final spurt for a few reasons. So first of all, as I said before, this skill will increase your speed. And if we can get our speed slightly higher right as the final spurt begins, that means we're starting off with more speed, which means we will get to our top speed much quicker. What do I mean by that? Well, let's say, randomly, for example, your Oguri Cap is running 100 miles an hour. Again, this is an example. And then right before the final spurt, her skill activates and now she's at 105, right? And then let's say her target final speed, or highest speed she can get, is 120. That means when the final spurt becomes, she will start the final spurt with 105 speed and she will accelerate to the 120 speed rather than starting at 100. That means she's starting off with 5 more miles per hour, and that means she'll accelerate quicker to her final speed because the difference between 100 and 120 is 20, and the difference between 105 and 120 is 15. And so the gap between the current speed and the final speed is much shorter. The second part is, of course, we want her acceleration to be higher, and we want it to proc right as we're in that final spurt because, higher acceleration means that we will hit our target final speed much quicker. And we want our stamina recovery to increase right before the final spurt. The reason for that is when you're in your final spurt, there is a calculation that goes on. It looks at your stamina and it says, hey, do you have enough stamina to hit your final top speed? If you do not have enough, it's not going to accelerate to that top speed. And therefore, you're missing out on, your top speed, of course. But if the stamina recovery procs right before the final spurt, you'll have more stamina, and that means you're more likely to hit your top speed because you'll probably have enough stamina, right? Therefore, we want all of these effects, right? The target speed increase, the acceleration increase, the stamina increase, to basically proc right before the final spurt. And we can sort of control that. So that's sort of why her skill is really good. Now let's talk about what blue skills we can use in order to sort of control when our unique will activate. So the first thing is you're probably only going to want 3 blue skills, because if you have 4, there's a chance that 3 of them could activate earlier than you need to, and therefore your unique will proc way too early, and then you won't get the added benefits that we want, right? So ideally, we want to stick with 3 blue skills. So some blue skills to consider is the stamina skill from Unity Cup is pretty good. It's either the Ignited Spirit Stamina or the Burning Spirit Stamina, which will increase your stamina in the mid-race in proportion to the amount of stamina on your total team. So if you have 2 Umas that have really high stamina, but your Oguri Cap doesn't have as much, if you put this skill on her, it could hopefully help increase her stamina enough just to hit her thresholds. And this is on a sliding scale, so I believe the base value for this effect is 0.015, but that can increase based on a couple of things. So it's the base stamina of your team, and the mood effect actually can increase this number as well. I don't have an exact number, but those are the information we're sort of given. 777 or 777s can also be a pretty good skill if you're running a track that's between 2,000 and 2,200 meters. So the way this skill works is you'll gain endurance or energy or stamina with 777 meters remaining on the track. So for example, if you look at this Tokyo track that's 2,000 meters turf, the final spurt begins on the 667 meters. So if the 777 procs, then it'll proc within about 100 meters of the final spurt. If we look at this racetrack, this is a Chuko. It's a 2,220 meter turf track. This final spurt begins on the 733 meter. So that's like around 40-ish meters when the 777s will proc. So on these 2 tracks, you're pretty close to starting your skill right before the final spurt. Next, we have After School Stroll, which is an end closer skill that basically will recover endurance when you are going downhill. And so we want to sort of get this skill on a track where the downhill is right before the final spurt. So if we look at this Kyoto track, 2,200 meters, we could see the downhill is right before the final spurt. So that means that if this is the 3rd skill to activate, then her unique will activate right before the final spurt and we'll get the added benefit. Next is Moxie, which is an uphill skill for front runners, so the opposite of After School Stroll, which will basically increase your endurance when you're going uphill. And so again, if we find a track that has an uphill right before the final spurt, so if you look at this Kyoto 3,200 meter track, you can see the uphill begins right before the final spurt, which will help us control when our unique will activate, as long as Moxie is the 3rd one to activate, of course. And then, of course, there are a ton of Pace Chaser skills that are really good. So Gourmand is super good. It will increase your endurance mid-race. It's a gold skill, so that gives you high stamina recovery, 5.5%. The downgraded version of Gourmand is Hydrate, which is a white-blue skill, so it has less stamina recovery, but it also increases your stamina recovery in a mid-race. We have Preferred Position, which will also decrease your fatigue mid-race. And what that just basically means, it'll increase your stamina recovery mid-race. Then we have the upgraded version of Preferred Position, which is Race Planner, which is a gold blue skill, so that's 5.5% recovery. And that will also decrease your fatigue mid-race, or just basically increase your stamina recovery mid-race. So these are really good Pace Chaser skills that you can pair with maybe the stamina skill from Unity Cup or the 777 if you're on a good track. You can't really use this with After School Stroll or Moxie. But pace chasers have a lot of good stamina recovery. The only downside is these are mid-race, and so they're a little bit harder to sort of proc on command. So like with Moxie and After School Stroll in 777, we can find tracks that sort of help us proc it right before the final spurt. These will activate as long as you hit your wit checks, but they're going to be randomly during the mid-race. And then if you really, really want a fourth skill, then you're most likely going to want to pick a skill that activates in the last leg or like after the final spurt. And it kind of sucks because then you're not getting the full potential of Oguri Cap's skill. We really want the final spurt to have that increased speed in the beginning, but at the same time, it's still good that regardless her unique activates, because then you still get the increase of speed, you still get the acceleration, you still get the stamina recovery. So if you really want that fourth skill, try to pick something that activates in the last leg. Examples are Small Breather, which slightly recovers endurance late race. This is a late surger skill. We have Shake It Out, which will increase endurance after activating many skills late race. So you just need to activate at least 3 skills during the late race, and your stamina will slightly recover. And then, of course, you have Agnes Tachyon's unique that you could use, and basically what it does is it's going increase your stamina recovery and increase your target speed when you're on the final corner in the second half of the race. So this could probably activate right before the last spurt or right after, and it has to be though like when you're near the front. So this is more like a front or a pace chaser, not a late or an end, because they won't probably be near the front. So like the summary to this basically is we can try to control when Oguri Cap's unique will proc, right? If you want to be sweaty, you can look at the track before a race, before a CM ideally, and you can see the distance. You can look at if there's any uphills or downhills, and those can really help you. But regardless, as long as you have the 3 blues proc right before the final spurt, you're going to get the full benefit of her unique. But if your blues proc and it happens after the final spurt for whatever reason, maybe one of your blues procced right after the final spurt, I don't think it's the end of the world. You're still getting the bonus of the target speed and the acceleration. It's just the stamina won't be as good. And then we can look at her awakening skills. So what's really, really nice about her is she does get like 3 blues in her awakening skills. She gets a Small Breather, which recovers endurance late race, which isn't the best because again, we're trying to get it to proc in the mid race, usually her stamina. She gets Gourmand. Gourmand, as I mentioned before, is a really good gold blue skill because it recovers your endurance mid race. That would be if you're running her pace. She does have 777s on her level 4 awakening skill. So, you could put that into the mix, but there are other ways to get 777s, so it's not a huge deal. And then finally, her 5th one is she gets Innate Experience, which increases velocity when you're near the inner rail on the final corner. This will give you a 0.35 increase to your target speed. It can be really good if you're running a track that, the final corner is sort of like right before the final spurt or whatever. But it's a little hard to proc just because you got to make sure she's sort of by the inner rail and you're also running long. So it can be good as long as, it can proc properly. So if I were to use my books for awakening skills, I think for Oguri, I would probably go up to level 3 because I want Gourmand at least. And if I want to run her late, at least I get a Small Breather. And again, 777s, you could go for it, right? But you can also get 777s either through a support hint through Fuku, or you could get it as an event from the winning tickets card. It just, it depends on if you want to run those cards. If you don't want to run them, then, you could probably just get the awakening skill. It's not that big of a deal. So, of course, let's look at her secret events. So her first 2 are kind of funny because it's like you either participate in the Tenno Show Spring or you don't. And if you do participate, you lose some energy, but you get a +1 to your mood, you get some random stats, and you get skill points. But if you don't participate, you still get a +1 to mood. So it's like, hey, at least there's that. And then her last secret event is if you win all of these races. So that includes the Tennis Show Spring. So, that would couple with the first secret event I showed. Then you'll get an increase to your speed, stamina, skill points, and you'll get a hint to hydrate, which is another blue skill that we talked about before. So here are her objective races. So what I kind of like about this is, her second objective just says you need to have at least 3,000 fans. And that happens at turn 24. And, the objective one starts at turn 12. So you have 12 turns of doing whatever you want. As long as you get your 3,000 fans, that's great. And then her objective 6 is she needs to place third or better in 2 G1 races. So you can sort of pick and choose which races you want to do, which is really nice, I think. It gives you a lot of leeway. And if, like, for example, there's events going on in Musume that's like, oh, complete this race and you get a prize, then you can sort of use Oguri to hit those prizes, which is nice. The one thing I will point out is she does have a couple of long distance races, and her long distance aptitude is B. So as long as you're okay with that, you could just run it with it B, but you might want to kick that up to A. And then another thing is, although none of her objective races call for dirt, she does have an aptitude of B in dirt. So if you can kick that up to A, you could possibly use some of the races to maybe just do dirt races or something. She's very versatile. And that's like another reason why, in general, I just like Oguri Cap in general, is just how dynamic she can be. Thank you so much for watching my review on Oguri Cap. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to use the comment section below. And I will see you guys later. Bye!